special 2 to 3 hour reaction to Tucker Carlson and Mike Huckabee's interview. If you have to even watch it, I've seen a couple clips on X, and I'm sure you guys have heard about it because before this leading up, there was a really big controversy, and I covered it on X. I'll show you guys my TikToks I made about it because I'm not sure exactly how accurate it was considering the information we knew about it. But to fill you guys in, Tucker Carlson, he went to Israel to interview the U.S. ambassador to Israel of the United States, and that's Mike Huckabee, former Arkansas governor. They essentially had the interview, and on the way out, Tucker claimed that security had stopped them, taking their passports, and they'd basically been detained as if they were like, terrorists or if they've done something wrong. When no, they were simply here just for an interview, and someone like Tucker Carlson is obviously not just some regular guy. So that happens. Tucker claims like one of his producers ends up getting detained even longer. So basically he ends up accusing the Israeli government and Mike Huckabee of lying and capturing him and basically luring him under false pretenses. And we find out that I guess some of that's true. There's also a video where it shows that Tucker is kind of friendly in the airport, although it does appear that he was detained, and then it kind of contradicts what the Israelis said as well. So we're going to go through this entire thing. It's pretty wild because Tucker, after the interview, kind of changed his mind, and then the interview itself, from what I hear from these clips, are pretty wild because it really goes into the debate of Israel, Palestine, the influence of Israel in the United States, and someone like Tucker, who we obviously know has been very critical of Israel, and he hasn't been this way forever. It's been really in the past year, I would say maybe two at most, definitely after October 7th, that people like Tucker and Candace are speaking up against this insane occupation of our government that I think everyone realizes at this point on both sides of the aisle. And, someone like Tucker Carlson, I'm not really sure exactly how honest this guy is because, yeah, it's great that he's speaking up about a really important issue, and I commend him for that. And I think, using his platform of 17 million followers on X and his massive YouTube channel and everything else is extremely monumental and important for moving the Overton window forward and, pushing free speech forward as well. So I think that's extremely important, but I really don't know who he's working for. Like, who is Tucker Carlson loyal to? I know his entire network was funded by like the Rockbridge network that's associated with J.D. Vance, possibly Peter Thiel. And, there's maybe some Saudi connections and Qatar connections in there. He said he bought a house in Qatar. It's hard telling really what Tucker is really about, especially his dad being CIA, which he gets really touchy about. So, yeah, it's hard telling with someone like Tucker Carlson. But in this case, whether he was sent there on his own or he went, whether he was sent by U.S. intelligence or he went on his own, is really important to understand because it really shows, or I guess it's really important to think that because, Tucker himself, whether he's an agent or whether he's just someone that is a journalist or a traveler, like he likes to call himself, he really is pushing this conversation forward. Again, you wonder why, but from what I've seen, it does appear that he manhandled Huckabee and really pushed him around with a lot of these questions. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. We have a lot of breakdowns because there's a lot of things I've heard they talked about. So for inclusive topics, information, we're going to be talking about really like the Zionism and things that they might not actually get into full depth. This is a long podcast, so I don't know how much they're going to cover. So I'll give some illustration and some more exclusive breakdowns, so I'm not sitting here staring at the YouTube screen and just stealing their video. But here we go. And, of course, we have one of these AI ads. Oh, volume's not working over here. I have to try on YouTube. Just 1 second, guys. Okay, here we are. Just started in the middle of the freaking interview. Okay. Here we are from the beginning.
And not the point makes it about the interviewer, not the person being interviewed. For one thing. For another, it's not that interesting most of the time. And for another, it's kind of off the record. The other person hasn't consented to you telling the story. So in general, we don't do that. Who'd want to hear that? Let the interview speak for itself. But in this case, we want to tell you just a few things about how this interview came about, because they are pretty interesting, revealing, and now weirdly relevant, apparently. So this interview with Mike Huckabee came about a couple of weeks ago on Twitter. One of our producers showed me. He said something to the effect of, "You're talking to Middle Eastern Christians, Tucker Carlson. Maybe you should talk to me. Why don't you come do an interview?" And I paused for a minute. I've thought in the past about trying to interview Mike Huckabee, whom I've known for over 30 years and worked adjacent to at Fox. And I had mixed feelings about it, mostly because it's hard if you're me to interview Mike Huckabee because of just the personal affect. Mike Huckabee is jovial, comes off as friendly. He's a grandfather. When annoyed, I can be nasty in interviews. And so it takes a lot of self-control to interview someone like Mike Huckabee, not because I hate him, but because it's hard to ask him tough questions and not come off as a jerk, which I often am. So, but I thought in this case, yeah, I should definitely do this for a bunch of different reasons. Mainly, the United States is moving toward a big war, a real war with Iran, a regime change war. The biggest war we've had since the invasion of Iraq.
Yeah, that's another thing we're going to be talking about here soon because, I would say we're maybe within days, if not a week, of seeing a war with Iran. Just a side topic there, because I know they're probably not going to be talking a whole lot about this. Maybe they will. But yeah, just for a brief moment, today Trump even said that if Iran does not agree to completely stop their enriching of uranium, like 100%, I think they're already 60 before, so completely give it up. And if they don't, we're going to go to war within the next 10 days. So that's not been set in stone, but he has been really warning Iran to... it's not even diplomacy. It's just actually giving up their nuclear arsenal and making sure that, and again, here's the thing. It's not that they're going to even hit the United States. That's not the reality here. It's all about protecting Israel, which they're definitely going to be getting into in this conversation.
In the spring of 2003, and Israel is driving that. We are doing this at the behest, at the demand of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So it seems like now is the time for more Americans to understand the dynamic between the U.S. and Israel, and to call attention to that. And for another, Huckabee's behavior in the last year in Jerusalem as the ambassador has been very, very striking. He famously had a meeting with the most damaging spy in American history.
Yep. Jonathan Pollard.
And why did he do that? He hadn't been asked by anybody up until 2 days ago. Why did you do that? So I wanted to be able to ask him that. And so we accepted, and then began the usual negotiations about when and where the interview would take place. And we were constrained because we weren't expecting this. We wanted to do it quickly, but we had tons of travel. So we threw them a date, them being the American embassy. We can do it on this date. And they were very accommodating. And then the question became, well, where do we do it? And maybe a Christian holy site. We said, we've got to get in and out really quick, got to be back to do a bunch of other interviews, but we've got this time frame. They said, well, why don't you do it at the U.S. Embassy? Or maybe we said that. Great, U.S. Embassy. So the U.S. Embassy is about an hour, 55 minutes from the big airport in Israel, Ben Gurion. So we said, okay, what about security? Now, at this time, the Israeli government, the prime minister included, were attacking me in this show. Netanyahu suggested I was a Nazi, for example. And so we thought, how about security? Obviously. Not because the Israeli government necessarily would do something bad, because there are a lot of people in Israel who think, because they've been told, that I'm an anti-Semite or a Nazi or want to kill Jews. It's kind of crazy overstatement, all untrue, obviously, but it would be good to have security. And I should say, having done interviews on 6 out of 7 continents over 35 years, I'm not very security conscious at all. Never really feel uncomfortable with this. Seemed like a prudent thing to do. So we were told by the embassy spokesman, no, we're not going to provide security. And so we said, okay, I guess we'll get private security. But could we get someone from the embassy to ride in the car with us from the airport to the interview? And we were told, no. Could we get what they call a control officer, just an American, with us, in an official capacity as an embassy employee with us? No, quote, for legal reasons, we can't do that. So,
yeah, that's funny. Especially someone like Tucker Carlson. Like, didn't he say he has friends in Israel that he called up when people accused him of being an anti-Semite? Oh, but the second, he comes for a scheduled interview with the U.S. ambassador to Israel, it's somehow like a violation to have his own security protect him, or it's a legal issue. I mean, isn't that what we have someone like Mike Huckabee for? What do we have a U.S. ambassador? What are we paying tax dollars for someone like him to do if he's not representing Americans in Israel? Sounds like he's just representing Israel. I mean, that's just crazy.
I thought, well, that's very strange. And then they said, but instead, we're turning you over to the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, MFA, and they're going to arrange everything in Israel. Well, this was within 24 hours of the Deputy Foreign Minister, Sharon Haskell, releasing a video calling me an anti-Semite and an enemy of Israel. This was the person who the embassy was telling us was going to handle all of our travel.
Apparently, you can go from 0 to a complete site in just a single prompt with Wix Harmony. I don't know if this is going to be possible, or vibe coding meets drag and drop freedom. We'll see about that. All right, let me try to make up a site to sell some.
So it was at this point that I just called. I called the spokesman for the U.S. Embassy in Israel, and I said, okay, I'm an American citizen responding to an invitation from the American ambassador to Israel. And by the way, I'm the son of a U.S. ambassador, so I have some sense, not an expert, obviously, but I have some sense of how this works.
Well, Tucker, we know you probably know a little bit more than you're willing to tell us. Your dad was working for the CIA, and not only that, like before he died, he was working, if it wasn't under the Trump administration, it had to have been at least under the Biden. He was U.S. ambassador to like Hungary, I think, and another country possibly. So, yeah, Tucker knows how this stuff works.
And I think that the U.S. ambassador has discretion to send somebody from his office to the airport to accompany someone in. I think that's right. And if it's not right, tell me what law you're talking about, what legal reason you're talking about that would prevent that. And now you're sending me over to a government official who's been calling me a Nazi? That's the person in charge of getting us to the embassy? Like, what is going on here? And the embassy spokesman, who's totally nice, said, well, this was the decision of someone called David Brownstein. He's the DCM, the number 2 guy in the embassy. And I said, well, put him on a text exchange. Like, what is going on here? And so Brownstein got on and didn't answer the question, but basically said, well, okay, let's just do the interview at the airport in the diplomatic reception area at the airport. Okay, I said, we're going to be flying in from Europe. And we had to be in and out really quickly. So at great expense, we chartered a plane, which I never do because I'm cheap. But we did. And so then I said to them, okay, I want to send you the flight information, tail number, flight number, route. And I want you to pass that on to the Israeli military just so, they don't mistake us for an Iranian drone or something. I mean, not to be paranoid, but again, this is probably the most violent country in the world, Israel.
Yeah.
Is there a country in the world where a higher percentage of the population has held a gun or shot someone? I mean, I don't know the answer, but this is a country.
Tucker almost has like a 25-minute monologue before the show even starts. But it appears like this entire monologue is after the fact, and he's going to be showing the interview. Okay. So, yeah, might as well skip ahead here. So, yeah, another 14 minutes. I was reading up on it here. It said that basically, like I said, he was detained. They try to match him up with this guy that literally called him a Nazi 2 days before on Twitter. And I'm sure they're going to get into that in the entire podcast when he talks to Huckabee, actually. But, yeah, we'll skip ahead to that.
thank you very much for having us, for inviting me. I was grateful to be invited.
Well, thank you.
I was grateful because I don't like all the name calling. I've engaged in some of it. I want to apologize for that. In general, I don't think people should be going immediately to motive, calling each other Nazis or anti-Semites. I said I hate the Christian Zionists. I lost control of myself. Of course, I don't. I've apologized for that. I have problems with my anger, and so I just want to apologize to you since you are a Christian Zionist.
Whoa.
You and I have known each other for over 30 years.
Literally, right out of the gate, he's just tripping over himself with all these apologies. That's a very strange way to start the interview. It's almost like he's giving Mike Huckabee the moral high ground here. So that's a very beta move.
3 years.
Over 30 years. That is totally true.
Back when you were in Little Rock. So
yes,
the newspaper. It's why I wanted us to have a conversation, talk to each other and not about each other. And I appreciate very much your coming here to.
Of course. And I'm only staying a couple hours, unfortunately, because I kind of shoehorned this in, but I hope that I will be back soon. And I hope that I can come back soon because I actually like, despite what you may hear, I actually like the country. I've been here a lot, and there are a lot of things I love about it. And I want to talk to people in it for like a week.
Good.
And get a better sense of it. So I want to ask you, everyone I've talked to in preparation for this has said the same thing. Jonathan Pollard. I'm just going to throw the name to you and have you explain.
No, I'm glad you asked.
Of course.
Interestingly, there's been a lot of things about it. You're the first person who has asked me about it, which I find amazing. So I'm glad you did.
Really?
The very first.
Good. Well, it's better to hear it.
Sure.
Hold on. So let's get this straight. Jonathan Pollard was arguably one of the most consequential American spies this country's ever seen. Stole secrets, and basically we had on the Soviets and gave them to Israel. And he spent 30 years in prison for it. And here's just a brief rundown before they actually get into it.
Of U.S.-Israel relations. Born in 1954 to a Jewish family, Mr. Pollard long admired Israel.
This guy wanted to be a spy from the beginning. He would play spy games. He would say that the Israeli Mossad was paying my salary. They're grooming me to work for the United States government. All fantasies of his spy imagination.
In 1984, his dreams became reality when, as an intelligence researcher, he had access to top-secret documents. He was caught 18 months later and soon became the only person in U.S. history to receive a life sentence for spying for an ally. In Israel, the issue has remained alive. In 1995, the Israeli government even granted Texas-born Mr. Pollard citizenship while he remained in an American prison.
I think Pollard should have been released years ago already. He's not a murderer and he's not a killer. He was a spy.
The case also has a resonance in Washington's intelligence community. The scandal created a lingering suspicion that Jews could hold dual loyalties and should not be trusted in sensitive posts.
It's about a disastrous story of literally the spy who never should have.
Jonathan Pollard, American spy. And why on earth did Mike Huckabee, our U.S. ambassador, meet with this guy? I mean, out of all things that he could do and people we could meet with, he met with a guy that was a traitor to our country and decided that it would be in his best interest to leave or to flee and go to Israel, the place he's most loyal to. I wonder why. Get back to the show here.
Sure. I met Jonathan Pollard 2 times. Once I was making a speech in Jerusalem. This has been a few years ago. His wife was still alive at the time, and he was there. And someone introduced me to him and his wife. I said hello to them. That was it. Hi. Nice to meet Esther, his wife, and that was it. I went and made my speech, and I left. later, his wife passed away here in Israel. And I sent him a note and just said, I'm sorry to hear about your wife. I remember meeting her at the hotel and sorry to hear it. He then asked, could he come and see me? He wanted to come and thank me for being kind to him. He came to the embassy. I think we met for maybe 30 minutes. We had a nice, pleasant visit. The funny thing was the New York Times reported that it was a secret meeting. Tucker, if you've ever been to the U.S. Embassy, you would know there's no such thing as a secret meeting at the U.S. Embassy. Sure. There are cameras everywhere. You walk through Marines, you walk through security, you walk through the front office, and there's a dozen or more people that are going to check you out when you come. And before you get there, you're going to have to give us your passport information. You're going to have to be vetted and screened and all of this stuff. So the idea that it was secret was ludicrous. The whole idea is, look, Jonathan Pollard did something that was terribly wrong. He sold secrets. He shouldn't have done it. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison and spent 30, actually was, I think he was sentenced to maybe more than 30 years, but he spent 30 years in prison. Most people convicted of something similar, which was one count, I believe, would have spent 2 to 4, but he spent 30. I don't have a problem with him spending 30 because I think what he did was despicable. I'm not defending anything about what he did. But even people like the former director of the CIA, a number of other senators on the Senate Foreign Relations of the Senate Intel Committee said that he should be allowed to leave and move to Israel if he wanted to. So it, to me, was not as big a deal that I had this basically courtesy meeting. He wanted to thank me for being nice to him when his wife died. That's pretty much the story.
You advocated for his release when you ran for, I remember it, in 2011.
So one of the biggest U.S. traitors in history says, oh, hey, by the way, I wanted to thank you because of when my wife died. It's like, wow, okay, that's totally believable. Yeah, totally believable. Yeah, that's just like saying Steve Witkoff or Stephen Miller met with Luigi Mangione because his cousin's brother-in-law was a nice guy or something. Like, it makes no sense. Like, he's totally lying here. He has to be.
Before he had served 30 years. And I agree with you that there are a lot of people languishing in prison, in our country and in this country, many countries, for longer periods than they deserve. And I think it's a Christian impulse to want to see them free. But this was the greatest traitor in modern American history who sold our battle plans against the Soviet Union, our main enemy in the Cold War, to the Israeli government, which, according to our Reagan CIA director, Bill Kacee, then gave them to the Soviet Union. So this was the most profound betrayal of the United States in my lifetime. Why advocate for that guy's release before he serves his full sentence?
If that were the case in 2011, it would have been because I had a number of friends that suggested that he had more than served time and he didn't want to live in the U.S. anymore. He wanted to live in Israel. And but my association with him, again, I had never met him until I met him in Jerusalem at a hotel. That was the first time I had ever encountered him.
I'm friends with a million bad people, or I've talked to a million bad people.
I'm sitting here with you. Right. I mean, come on.
I mean, Jesus ain't with tax collectors. So I trust me, do not judge people who are friends or.
Yeah, but you can't, there's no way of comparing that. Oh, I'm sitting here with you. It's like, oh, I meet a lot of bad people. Okay, but Tucker, you're not I don't think you are in any government position. But Mike Huckabee is an actual government official, and he's meeting with someone who had government secrets and spied in our country, and he's a traitor. So those two things going together, it's just a terrible look. First of all, reputation-wise, like, how do you not think that could be a national security risk just based on that, of what it appears alone? I mean, it's absolutely laughable that you even try to downplay something like this, because I think it's pretty clear what it is.
Know or enjoy the company of immoral people, because it's not an endorsement of their immoral behavior. Pollard is different, I think, once you become U.S. ambassador, the representative of the President of the United States in the United States of America in a foreign country, and then you invite not only the most damaging betrayer in our lifetimes, but also a guy who continues to advocate for betrayal. So he gave an interview, as I know you know, in 2021 to Israeli media, in which he said, I would encourage Jewish Americans with security clearances to spy for Mossad against their own country, the United States, because, and I'm pretty much quoting him, all Jews should have dual loyalty. That's not repentance. That's not.
If we actually had an America First government, one that was, actually America First and about the people, this itself would probably be considered treason, or at the very least enough to fire Mike Huckabee. The fact that it's just totally normal for the Israeli ambassador to meet with a known traitor, and he doesn't even seem fazed. Like, he is justifying this. That's the biggest problem with this. And someone like Tucker, whose dad was in the CIA under Reagan, he was head of the Voice of America. He knows exactly what happened here. So I'm sure his dad probably told him this firsthand. And it just shows you that someone like Huckabee, I don't know if he's genuinely thinks this is okay, or maybe he's just actively running cover. It's hard telling, really.
That wholeheartedly. I think, let's remember, it was President Trump who probably facilitated his departure. And I'm certainly supportive of President Trump. I think.
Yeah, you guys are on the same page. We know that. You guys support a foreign country more than ours.
You are. And
Pollard's not. He called him a madman after your meeting.
That's why I say Pollard is not, for me, the real issue. It was the fact that he did something that was despicable. I'm not denying that. Of course he did. And he paid dearly for it, 30 years in prison, and he should have. That's what he should have done. No question about it.
But why meet with him in the U.S. Embassy? Your colleagues said they were shocked. They said...
Who were the colleagues that said they were shocked?
Quoted on background in the New York Times. I think the meeting was in August. This could all be fake. That's why I'm asking you.
Well, the same New York Times said it was a secret meeting. And I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a secret meeting in the U.S. Embassy.
Do you see why the U.S. ambassador hosting a convicted betrayer of his own country who's encouraging Americans to continue to betray their country would seem shocking?
Well, I would say that it wasn't that you make it sound like I'm hosting a meeting. I simply met with him. I meet with people all the time.
Some of them just walk in without a...
No, they have to have an appointment. Of course they do.
Oh, so it is hosting him then, I think.
Well, I don't know if it was hosting, but it was certainly, he was able to come to the U.S. Embassy to have a meeting at his request. I did. And frankly, I don't regret it. I met with a lot of people over the course of the time I've been here, and we'll meet with a lot more. That's it.
So if you spend the evening at my house, you are guaranteed to find yourself in a conversation about the how.
Thing that's funny that I just thought about, Donald Trump in 2016, or whenever it was, I believe it was 2016 when he first took office, he pardoned Jonathan Pollard, sent him on a flight back to Israel where he went on the tarmac and met with Netanyahu. But what's crazy about this is that Trump pardoned this guy before he pardoned, or still hasn't to this day, pardoned Edward Snowden and Julian Assange, two American heroes. In Edward Snowden's case, he did get charged with espionage and leak classified information that the NSA was spying on Americans, which is a justified action that I think most people would stand behind. But that really does speak volumes, that Trump pardoned someone who caused so much damage, irreparable harm to our country, like Jonathan Pollard. He gets pardoned. That's one of the first things Trump does, or first people Trump's pardon in his first term. But to this day, he did not do anything for Edward Snowden. So let that sink in.
Hello app. We talked about it this morning. It is the group that keeps track of them, that is dedicated, Jewish Israeli group dedicated to combating the molestation of children, and keeps a long list. And then you can look it up. And
Tucker, I hope you're not saying that you think the Israelis support the molestation of children.
Obviously, I'm not saying that.
Okay,
I'm saying that the Israeli government shields accused child molesters from justice in the United States.
I'm not sure I could say that that's something that is provable. I don't know. But I am not aware that the Israeli government is shielding people.
You obviously want to sleep well and fashionably. Brooklyn bedding can help. Here at TCN, we take sleep time seriously.
But no, the point I could tell he was getting at right there was, or Tucker was, which I'm glad he did pretty good job of preparing himself with questions to ask Huckabee. He definitely did his research here. Because there is, and I've seen these videos, I don't want to show it on YouTube, but there are known videos of the IDF and some Israelis doing some just horrible things, almost indescribable, to these Palestinian prisoners. And it was so bad that there were riots. Like the Israelis had riots because they were not allowed to do these things to these prisoners. So it's the fact that Mike Huckabee doesn't know about that. He's either being genuinely dishonest or he just isn't doing his job. But of course he's going to deny it. Like, I guarantee even if he does know that, there's no way he's like, oh yeah, that's totally how things go over here.
Pronounce this man's name correctly. It's Tom, I believe, Alexandrovich. I think that's right, and I've written it down. But of course, my handwriting is so terrible I can't read it.
Glad Tucker asked as well. So Tom Alexandrovich, I believe his name is. He actually was the guy that was last October was an Israeli cybersecurity official in Las Vegas that was busted in a sex sting operation by the FBI for supposedly attempting to lure in a minor for sex. So this guy was able to flee back to Israel without being prosecuted, while the Americans that were busted in this operation, I believe they had to face trial and might be in prison already. But this Alexandrovich guy, because he was on Netanyahu's cabinet, he got a free pass. See if I can find it here. And the FBI facilitated this. The Trump administration could have stopped this. They could have at least voiced their opinion, but they're complicit with this. They have no problem with this whatsoever. Easily one of the worst things worst fumbles the administration's had so far. Just absolutely embarrassing. So, yeah, here we are. So Tom Artyom Alexandrovich. I'll make sure we have the screen up here. Oh, my bad. I have the screen. Okay, so Tom Artyom Alexandrovich, the acting head of data AI at Israel's National Cyber Directorate, was arrested in Nevada in a federal child predatory sting operation. He escaped by law, returning to Israel. He's one of 8 people arrested on charges luring the you-know-what, and after being detained, he was released on the $10,000 bail, allowed to flee to Israel, where he remains there and is unlikely to be extradited. And this was back in August. What do you know? We are in February of 2026, and this guy is still in Israel to this day. So what is Mike Huckabee going to say about this? Because, again, it brings you to the same two-way street here. It's either going to be he knows that this is happening and he's lying about it, or he's not doing his job blatantly and says, look, I've never heard of this guy before. I didn't know this happened. I'm all the way in Israel. Whatever his excuse may be. I can't imagine that he's going to be supportive of this. Like, his response here and response to a lot of these questions is going to tell us a lot.
Vegas last year and was caught up in a sting designed to catch people soliciting sex from children. He was one of a number of people arrested for this. He was arraigned and charged. And then 2 days later, he fled to Israel and did his first hearing by Zoom. He was allowed for some reason to leave for a foreign country, having already been charged for a attempted molestation of a child. And he remains here now. And there have been many news stories about this. And I just wonder if you would ask the Israeli government to put him on a plane and send him back to face justice for attempting to molest an American child. It doesn't seem complicated.
No, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, that's not asking too much.
Doing that, but I want to find out if the Justice Department of the U.S. has already sought to extradite him. Is there anything in process? I don't know.
Why wouldn't they seek to extradite him?
I have no idea. That's a question for the Justice Department.
I have many questions for the Justice Department. Like, why are millions of Epstein files still classified? Why do you think that is?
I have no idea. I haven't kept up with that. I've never met the man. I don't know him.
You haven't kept up with the Epstein disclosure?
I mean, only from a distance. I'm 6,000 miles.
Well, he switched topics really quick, but I think it was interesting for him to stay on. He should have stayed on the the cybersecurity topic more, because he had Huckabee right there. Huckabee literally said, "Oh, shouldn't the DOJ be looking to prosecute this guy?" It's like, yeah, he got busted. He legally, I mean, there's video of this guy getting busted, and what he's just going to say, "Oh no, that's their fault." He's kind of saying, if it's that big of an issue, maybe they would do something about it. It's like, dude, you're our representative. You're there. At the very least, you should at least know about this. And if not, you should be like, oh, yeah, there's a plan going on to get this guy back to the United States. Doesn't seem the least bit concerned here.
It's away from D.C. these days. I'm pretty sure that there's so much
current president of Israel, who I know President Herzog,
know him very well,
apparently was at Pedo Island. That's what it says in the disclosures. And of course, we know that the former prime minister.
He actually was. Show the receipts here. I'm sure Huckabee's going to be like, oh, no, he wasn't. There's no proof of that. See if I can find it here. Just 1 second. Aha. Isaac Herzog, 2014, Epstein files. Show this is no cap here. This is legit. Not making this up. No conspiracy. 100% fact. This is from Jeffrey E. This is Jeffrey Epstein. That's his email. jevacation@gmail.com. To Melanie Spinella. Subject unknown. This is on December of 2014. Basically says grants charity Herzog Chud Coing. It should say going to the island this weekend. Come plane 3 issue and gift accounting house. Okay, so yeah, there's proof right there that he had plans, or it looked like he actually visited the island. And this is the current president of Israel, on top of Netanyahu, who has been knowing to also have ties with Epstein and Jess Staley. Talked about a meeting together in 2011 or 2013. So, yeah. But what is Huckabee? Here's the thing with Huckabee with the Epstein files, before they get into it, I guess he would be limited to what he knows about that. Because it's not like he is working with the Israeli intelligence or Mossad. I mean, he might be in a sense, but it's not like he's privy to that information in his current position. So yeah, the Epstein files, like, that might be an okay angle, but he might reach a dead end there, because yeah, it's like what is Herzog and Netanyahu and some Israeli officials have some ties to Epstein. I mean, that's known. But what is he going to do about it? Like, what can he do about it? So we'll see how this goes here.
Israeli officials are directly implicated in Epstein's life, if not his crime. So I would think that you'd be following this.
Only I was not aware that there was any connection with President Herzog. I would be surprised to hear that. And I knew there was about
what do you know?
Prime Minister.
What do you know?
Apparently had a lot of.
Again, like, he is all the way in Israel, but it's like, shouldn't it be a little surprising that he wouldn't have at least heard that once? And he's saying, he's kind of defensive. He's saying, oh, I haven't heard that. I probably would have heard that. Like, dude, that's pretty wild.
Dealings with Epstein.
Business dealings. And by the way, I'm not alleging anything, but I mean, it's in the Epstein files. And I don't know that I've heard the current president of Israel respond to it, but he is listed as a visitor to Pedo Island. So that's kind of a big deal. I wonder, considering there are so many suggestions in the files, as I'm sure you know, of sexual abuse, and given that Jeffrey Epstein was a convicted sex offender, I wonder why the administration you work for would be holding millions of files, which I believe belong to the public, hidden for, quote, national security reasons. What would those national security reasons be, do you think?
Honestly, I think you've probably got more access to the White House sometimes than I do. You should ask them.
Well, you're the government official representing that.
You actually might have a point there. Yeah, Tucker was at that one oil meeting when we captured the president of Venezuela, and they were discussing where the oil was going to go that we took. So there is some truth to that, but again, you can only speculate what someone like Huckabee knows. Obviously, we know where his loyalty lies. We know who he's working for, but also how much information is he privy to as U.S. ambassador? I mean, if I was Israel, if I was any foreign country, I probably would be very careful about how much a foreign ambassador knows about our secrets and things that are actually important and can get us in trouble, because that would make you a spy. Like, if Huckabee knew about these things, if he really knew, he should know that Herzog was in the files, but things pertaining to what these people did and actual things that we don't know. That would be kind of dumb on Israel's part to be leaking that to this guy. That would, by default, almost create another Jonathan Pollard, another spy. That just wouldn't make any sense. So I don't know if Tucker knows that, but you're kind of not going to get anything out of that. But yeah.
In Israel. And I represent the U.S. in Israel to the Israeli government from the U.S. government. But honestly, nobody has presented that to us.
Well, now
we have a pretty dynamic situation here. I don't know if you know that or not, but there's a lot going on in this part of the world. And frankly, that has not been top line item.
But you're surprised to hear that the current president of Israel, whom you know, is listed as a visitor to Pedo Island.
Had never heard that.
He's listed as
never heard it even in the Israeli press.
Are you going to ask him next time you see him?
I'll be happy to.
Like how Tucker says it with a straight face. He was a visitor to Pedo Island.
Talk to him almost every week.
I guess what I'm asking is not simply as a representative of my government or a high U.S. official, but just as a man and a father and a Christian. How could you resist saying, were you on Pedo Island with Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, if I'm not aware of it. And secondly, there are a lot of things that go on in the world. I don't question every single person about every single thing that may be alleged about.
Country.
Yeah, there we go. It's the obfuscation of just playing dumb. Oh, I don't question everything about ever this, or I don't know that. It's so he's just playing dumb. That's what he's doing. He's treating it as if he's being interrogated here. Man, what do you expect?
I understand all that, but this is the first I've ever heard of this. So why do you expect me to have knowledge of something like that?
Well, because you attacked me personally for suggesting that Jeffrey Epstein had ties to Mossad, and you said that.
You think he does?
Well, it's very clear he does from the files.
You think he does? From where do you get that?
Well, the fact that he was in contact.
Where do you get that? What? Jeffrey Epstein? What? How could he possibly work for Israel? You conspiracy theorist, QAnon. Where could you possibly get something so bizarre like that? I mean, you got to be pretty crazy to think Jeffrey Epstein worked for Mossad. Come on. There's no way. There's no possible way that could happen. Or maybe it did, actually. Because I think it's a little strange that Mr. Epstein here is wearing, if it loads, an IDF sweatshirt. Involved, we always get proven to be right. I said that Epstein was most likely an asset for Mossad, or at the very least worked with or was a mercenary for the Israel. Again, but okay, so as you can see, kind of ruined the joke there, but Jeffrey Epstein with an IDF sweatshirt, just trolling. But yeah, what is Huckabee thinking here? How does he think that? Where do you get that? It just shows he's not paying attention, or he's lying. I think at this point it's pretty clear to tell what he's doing. But yeah, I think Tucker probably has the momentum here.
Members of the Israeli government, including the current president and the former prime minister, and all kinds of Israeli intel-connected people. I'm not saying he worked for Mossad. I don't think we know that. Bro. But there's no question that he had.
He literally just said that he thinks it's clear Epstein works for Mossad. I mean, Take that back. -2 R points for Tucker. You can't just completely walk back something you said 15 seconds ago.
Extensive contact with CIA.
I think you said it, a turning point event. Everybody knows Jeffrey Epstein.
I said everyone thinks, and it turns out everyone was.
That's right. He did say that. Tucker did say that TPUSA event. Yeah, so there you go. Now he's catching Tucker in a contradiction and a pickle here. So great.
Right, that he did have.
I'm not sure everyone was right or everyone thinks.
Okay, but you said that I was lying, and I don't want to make this about me.
I don't think I said you were lying, Tucker. I don't recall.
I'm just saying, why don't we release all the files, and then we don't need to guess?
I got no problem with that. Go ahead.
Would you call on it? Well, because you weighed in on it and said that this was not true, when of course
I said there was no evidence.
Well, there's quite a bit of evidence, but you haven't apparently bothered to read any of the files. Is that what you're saying?
I have not read the Epstein files. Apparently,
I want to get to as I said at the outset, I said something awful that I regret that my wife barked at me about. I lashed out at Christian Zionists and evangelicals, and I just want to say again that I'm sorry. I've always liked them because they're pro-life and they're also really nice people. So for the third time, I'm sorry that I said that. I think part of my problem was I don't understand the theology, and you are not a fake Baptist minister. You're an actual minister. You had a church for many years. You're an actual theologian. So, and I mean this with sincerity. I hear people say, those who bless Israel will be blessed. I know it's a reference to Genesis. I don't understand the connection between that concept and modern Israel and the geopolitical world. And so I'm going to stand back and ask
let's first define, because, for my days as a debater in high school and college, one of the things I knew, you didn't start the debate till you defined the terms.
Amen.
Let's define the terms.
Thank you.
What is,
Thank you.
What is a Christian Zionist? What does that mean to you? What does it mean?
I don't know. It's the people who call me a Nazi for asking what Israel means.
See, that's where Tucker, I hate that he does that. Like, I wish he actually just had a view and stuck with it. And I get he's a journalist. Like, he is decent at asking questions, but it's like, dude, that's all he does. He always says he's just asking questions. Like, he's never actually, like, grounded on any point at all. He's throughout his entire career, even when he's, like, destroying Ted Cruz in that debate, he goes on the stage at TPUSA and says Epstein works for the IDF and Mossad, and then now he's saying, "Oh, I'm just asking questions. Oh no, I need you to tell me." And we all know what he thinks, and he's already said, but it's like, dude, he just seems like a shapeshifter to me. I mean, I like Tucker for what he's doing here, definitely more than Huckabee, but I don't trust him at all.
I mean, that's kind of I don't even know.
But here's the point. If you say a Christian Zionist is a person who has a brain virus and is guilty of heresy, that's a pretty big charge.
I know. I shouldn't have made it. I made it out of anger and ignorance.
So, and I'm Christian, I think we can agree, as somebody who follows Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
Has a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, believes in his death, burial, resurrection, has repented of one's sins, and have accepted him as one's Savior. Would that be fair? Christian. Define that. Zionist. A Zionist simply means a person who believes that the Jewish people have a right to have a homeland where they have security and safety. Did you believe that the Jews have a right to live in Israel? Do you believe that Jews have a right to live in Israel?
I
have
any questions about all of those. Actually, I wish Israel So I saw this recently in an extremely telling exchange between the governor of Texas.
The way he phrased that, they do that all the time. Do you think Israel has a right to exist? Oh, don't you think that people have a right to live somewhere and have their own country? But try changing that up and throwing that in, replacing that with a white person or a white country. What does anyone do? I don't know. I mean, that seems to be a pretty crazy take there, especially when you saw what the Return of the Land did in Arkansas, and they faced legal battles to shut down their one segregated community. I mean, and it wasn't even that big. And now they're going to say that, oh, the Jewish people deserve to have an entire country. Like, it's like, oh, don't you think they have the right to do that? But here in America, when we're literally getting replaced and we're seeing the demographics change, like, I mean, very rapidly every decade, to a point where, like, the minority is going to be the people that founded this country. And that's just crazy. Like, the double standard is so obvious if you can understand that.
Who I know and I've always liked, and a woman I don't know, never met, who's on the Religious Liberty Commission or something. And she said, I'm a Catholic, but I'm not a Zionist. And they have this ferocious exchange. And he kept saying, and everyone on the panel seemed to keep saying, questions I think are really important, and I hope you'll answer them. One is, where does that right come from?
I would say it comes from, essentially, you could say it comes from the Bible. I would say that it does. But it comes also from a long iteration of historical precedents going to the Balfour Declaration of 1917. It comes from the League of Nations 1927. It comes from the United Nations 1947,
right.
The Declaration of Independence of the Israel State in May of 1948. They were immediately attacked. They won the war. They were attacked again in 1956. They won the war. They were attacked.
Yeah, we know. 6-Day War.
We came there. We're
right.
in Israel now talking. But does the U.S. have a right to exist? Does anyone question whether we have a right to exist?
I don't. Yeah, but I, of course, I'm for America. You know,
good for you.
But
good for you. Yeah.
Every current country on the map has the same right to exist that Israel has. Is that what you're saying?
I think what we're saying is that when a country has established itself and it is following international law, it has been deemed by numerous bodies that it is indigenous to its homeland, as Israel is. This is its homeland. It goes back 3,800 years to the time of Abraham. It's not that the Jewish people just showed up here in 1948 and said, we're going to have some land.
Hold on. So those are two different tracks, and I just want to make sure that we separate them so I understand each one separately.
All right.
So you're saying there's the modern legal framework, and so you said a country that abides by international law has a right to exist.
I would say that is a part of its existence.
Would the inverse be true, that a country that does not abide by international law forfeits its right to exist?
Not necessarily, if it has the capacity to stay and make its case known. But there have been Jewish people in this land.
Okay, but that's a separate...
Or if it has the ability to blackmail enough countries and steal power to make sure the country can survive.
Land for 3,800 years.
Okay, so...
Yeah, two different arguments there, but if he's really going to try to pull the whole, this is the promised land. They've had this for 3,000 years. This is the Semites. And it's like, okay. Netanyahu, for instance, he's an Eastern Ashkenazi. You know what? He's not, from what it appears, he does not have any Semitic DNA. The people that actually have it are the Palestinians. And they actually have rights to the land, technically. Or at least some of it. And the people like, the Mark Levins, it's like, these are people that immigrated from Eastern Europe and came to Israel afterwards. And like post-1948, even someone like Miri Matelson, she's technically a Palestinian. She was born in, I believe it was like the British mandated Palestine at that time, but she was not even born in Israel. So this whole concept that they've had this for 3,000 years is nothing more than a political movement. And here, I'll prove that to you right here. Because a lot of people don't know this. Not only is Christian Zionism not even mentioned in the Bible once, it's a politically funded movement that didn't even get started until maybe less than 100 years ago. Let's get the date here. So Christian Zionism, that would have been, let's see, the DM here. Oops. Okay, so the term Christian Zionist was first used by Theodore Herzl the founder of modern political Zionism at the first Zionist Congress in Basel, Switzerland in 1987 or 1897, my bad. Herzl used the term to acknowledge and welcome the support of Christian figures. Okay, so this is 1897. Again, I know it's a long time, but this wasn't thousands of years ago. As Huckabee's saying, this goes back to the Bible. Well, this is that long. No, the geographical nation of Israel has only existed for less than 100 years. But of course, they try to conflate the two. That's the biggest psyop of all this.
But you're saying, as the modern nation state with borders and a military and a Knesset and just all the kind of trappings of a modern country, all of which I support, that country has, every country on the planet has the same right as Israel to exist because it does exist. Is that what you're saying? I'm just trying to understand the concept here.
Well, I think what we're trying to get to is Christian Zionism, and you've taken this way off the road.
I don't know that I have. I don't need to. Christian Zionism is a separate thing, but I just keep hearing people say Zionism is the belief.
That's the fundamental argument that's going on. Does Israel have a right to live in their indigenous, ancient, historical land, a land that has been affirmed throughout international organizations, a land that has direct ties to the Jewish people?
I just want to know if this is a universal principle. I guess that's what I'm getting at, because if it's not, then it's meaningless to me, because as a Christian, I believe in universal principles. Something is right for everyone, or it's wrong for everyone. We don't believe in special cases.
But here's the question. If the Jews didn't have this land, would the Jews have a right to any land?
I don't know. I'm not attacking the Jews. I'm asking if this applies to every people and every nation. Does every nation have the same right to its own homeland, its own physical land that you say that Israel does?
I feel like we're in a rabbit hole here.
No, I think it's a very straightforward question. No, but does that right extend to other countries other than
Israel? The most important thing that is going on in our culture right now is whether or not the people that are yelling in the streets from the river to the sea, whether that's a legitimate point of view to say that there should not be a Jewish homeland. There should not be a Jewish state.
You'll never hear me say that. I just want to know.
I know you haven't said it, but
Also, that's the reason they use this argument is because when they say they have this right to exist, they have the right to a state, and they just throw the religious and the scripture in there to make it more of a compelling case, but what they're really saying when they say, does Israel have a right to exist? Do they have a right to a homeland? They're saying, do they have a right to American support? Because that's what they're contingent on. That's what their support and that's what their existence, it all coincides together. Like, they would not exist without the massive amount of support that's, completely out of proportion, whether it's, more weapons, billions of dollars a year in foreign aid, or whether it's just Congress voting in every single direction to benefit them, AIPAC, all these, the Israel lobby that's completely taken over DC. And that's the issue there. It is a one nation under blackmail.
That's one of the arguments going on globally. And the United States, has pretty narrow view, I would say, in our media culture, what's happening around the world. There are plenty of countries having this debate. Stonehenge is a lot older than the first temple in Israel. And it was built by the same people who live there now. It's the same people. And they are being pushed off their island and outnumbered people from other places. And so in Great Britain, in Ireland, which is also a country with a nation of people, a race, if you will, that is being replaced.
Who is being replaced by? Okay.
And their people have been there longer than the Jews have been in Israel. And so they're having this debate too. That's all I'm saying. And lots of places are having this debate.
Sure.
So does that principle apply to everyone, or is it specific just to Israel?
I think it applies specifically to Israel. It applies to anyone who can prove that they have some connection to the land and connection to the history and connection to international law. But Israel, I think, does have an extraordinary
international law. So if, again...
Well, no, but let me finish this, Tucker, because here's the point. We're talking about Christian Zionism. The idea that as a Christian, I believe in both the Old and the New Testament. Why wouldn't I? I'm a person of the book. There are 80 million evangelical Christians in the United States. What makes us who we are is our adherence to the Scripture, our belief that the Bible all of it, not part of it, but all of it is the word of the living God.
Yeah.
So if I believe in the Old and the New Testament, I do believe that there is a very specific call to the Jewish people that started with Abraham, and he called them out of what is now modern day Iraq, said, come where I send you. He came, this is the land. Genesis 12:3, he says, I will bless those who bless you, curse those who curse you. In Genesis 17, he looks out at the world, he says, look, and this is where I'm giving you the land.
I think
and since that time, there have been people living in this land connected to that moment of history. So there is a historical connection that is unbroken.
You've said that, and I want to ask you what that means a little more specifically, if that's okay. But first, let me just say that you could say the same thing of Britons who've been there in their land longer.
Is anybody trying to tell the Brits they can't live there anymore?
No, what's happening is...
But they are saying that to the Jews.
No.
Oh, okay, but I just want to...
Here's the difference, though, Ambassador Huckabee. It's not that people are telling the Brits they can't live in their home country. They're being replaced, just like Tucker just said. Like, you see it more in the United States. I mean, you also see it in the UK and all of Europe. They were replaced by immigrants, by these third worldists. And, for instance, let's just talk about the United States for a second. When I was born in the year 2000, I was born into a country that was 75% white. So 3 out of every 4 people that you would see in the United States just 26 years ago were all of the European white descent. Now, 2026, that number is, last we've seen, is around 56%, 55% white. So we've seen in just a quarter of a decade, the demographics shift down 20%. If you do the ratio, if you see how that's moving in that direction, we're not even maybe 10 to 15 years away of not even being the majority anymore in the country that our ancestors founded. But it's shame on us for thinking that. It's like we're the ones with the problem. Like we're the ones with the brain disease for wanting to keep culture and keep tradition in our country. But how dare you question God's chosen people? They're guaranteed everything. Like they always have a right to exist. They always have a right to a land and a nation, but not everybody else.
And extend the same sympathy or the same principle. You seem like this is. You think I'm trying to trap you? I'm not. I'm not at all trying to trap you. It'd be as simple as saying Native Britons have the same.
No problem with the Native Brits having their land,
having the right to their land.
I don't know that there is a biblical connection for the Brits.
Okay,
but I would say
so that's what it comes
take
down
that
to.
off the table, and I think there's still a basis for the Jews having this little bitty strip of real estate.
I'm not even arguing with you. I'm just trying to I'm just trying to understand what it is that you're saying, because it's not obvious to me, and maybe it's an IQ problem, but I'm having trouble understanding this. But let me just go back to just clarify one thing.
Okay.
You've brought up international at least twice, maybe 3 times, as a basis for Israel's legitimacy. If Israel was out of compliance with international law, whatever that is, would it be less legitimate?
Depends on if the law and the way it's applied is legitimate. There are some applications of so-called international law that are not legitimate. Look at the ICC or the ICJ.
I agree.
Utterly ridiculous. One of the reasons I'm so grateful President Trump and Secretary Rubio are pushing hard, trying to get rid of the ICC and the ICJ, is because they have become rogue organizations that are no longer really about an equal application of law and justice.
I don't know enough about it to say if that's true or not. But I'm interested that you yourself appealed to international law as a basis of Israel's.
What I'm looking at is the whole of the last 100 years.
Okay, we pause that for a second. Okay, so that's again more Israeli propaganda right there. I'm not going to say I agree with the ICJ, the International Criminal Justice and the International Criminal Court. I don't agree with them on everything, and I certainly don't think the United States should be taking orders from them for the most part. But they actually have a pretty valid claim when they're talking about the international war crimes a certain country, Israel, has committed. in the last 2 years since October 7th. I mean, the 70,000 Palestinians we've seen that have perished. So it looks it's pretty bad. And it's pretty insane to think that they're going to try to think these organizations or these criminal bodies have no justification anymore, and they have no credibility and should be dismantled, if not sanctioned, because they are actually speaking out about something that more countries than not agree with. I think it's at least 90 to 100 countries. Maybe, don't quote me on that. It is a substantial amount of countries that stand with these claims that they have committed genocide. And like the only countries that don't stand with this is the United States and Israel. Like literally, I think it's just them. Maybe like a couple more. Maybe like Turkey. But like it's literally just these two countries that are defending this.
Balfour Declaration is not exactly international law, by the way. It was a letter, I think.
It was maybe not law, but it was a declaration. It was an assumption and a declaration. It was done by Lord Balfour in Great Britain. At that time, this land was under the British mandate.
Yeah, they're switching topics pretty quick. But yeah, so the Balfour Declaration is interesting. That's what really started a lot of this. And what Huckabee won't say here is the Balfour Declaration, that's what started the state of Israel. That was like really the precursor here. Because American Jews were able to convince Lord Balfour to give them the state of Israel, or the British Mandate of Palestine, in exchange for the U.S. to fight their war and enter World War I. So that's what essentially happened there, is the American Jews were able to convince the American government and subvert the powers that be to convince them to fight a war to help the Brits, the British Empire, not the British Empire, but Lord Balfour, and they basically just got their own country. So that's just straight up finesse right there. We fought a war that we shouldn't have fought, and we helped another country in the process that is hurting us today. So yeah, the Balfour Declaration was obviously very detrimental to not only the United States, it's Israel's neighbors, and it's been very damaging for a lot of people, more people than they would ever care to admit.
And he said the Jews should have the land that was theirs from 3,800 years ago. It was simple as that.
Right. And I'm not debating that. I'm just... It was not international law. It was a colonial power saying, okay,
but then later it was
divide up the world
law under the League of Nations, under the United Nations. And then because of the victories that Israel had against those who tried to annihilate them, and it wasn't just that they were trying to take a little piece of their land, they tried to annihilate them.
Okay.
And there is still to this day, the shouts are from the river to the sea. And Tucker, that means only one thing, not the shrinking of Israel, but the
This is your brain when you're struggling to focus.
Yeah, but it's more complex than that. They like to say, they like to use these slogans like, from the river to the sea, or Iran chants death to America. It's the same PR stunt. They have to use like some sort of phrase that that encapsulates this idea that Israel is always a threat and their neighbors, no matter what, will always be out to destroy them and out to overthrow them. And there could be some truth to that, but what do you expect after a whole century plus of just wars and famine and destruction of your neighbors? I don't think your neighbors would want to play too friendly with you. I don't imagine in any world or any universe where they would, unless you fully control the powers around you. And that's what the Greater Israel Project pertains to. That's what they're trying to do.
I don't think you can say that you know what it means, actually, because you don't know what's in people's hearts. So why don't we just deal with the facts? Maybe some people mean it.
I know it's in their mouths. I know it's in their minds.
But I'm not. Look, you'll never hear me say that. You will hear me say is I'm confused by what the definitions are. So let's go through this. You've appealed to Genesis. Genesis 15 says it's Abram, it's pre-Abraham, it's Abram, receives from God the news that his descendants will inherit the land. And you tell me as the theologian if I'm getting this wrong, but from the Euphrates to the Nile. I think that's right. And that would include like basically the entire Middle East. That would be the Levant, so that would be Israel, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon. It would also be big parts of Saudi Arabia and Iraq. It would be,
I'm not sure it would go that far. I mean, it would be a big piece of land, but here's the point.
It would be a lot of places that are now countries.
That this particular area that we're talking about now, Israel, is a land that God gave through Abraham to a people that he chose. It was a people, a place, and a purpose. We can look at it that way. Christian Zionism, I want to go back because that's where we started.
I'm not going to let you off on this because you have said it 3 times that God gave this land to this people. And so it is entirely fair for me with respect to ask, what land are you talking about?
And that's why Huckabee's in a pickle, because the land that he claims God promised to these people was not the same map of Israel today. It was not present-day Israel. And it certainly wasn't the Greater Israel Project. Like that. That's where he can't answer some of these questions because there is no truth to it.
Because I just read Genesis 15, as I have many times. Mm-hmm. And that land, I think it says, from the Nile to Euphrates, which is, once again, basically the entire Middle East. So God gave that land to his people, the Jews, or he didn't. You're saying he did. What does that mean? Does Israel have the right to that land? Because you're appealing to Genesis.
Yeah.
You're saying that's the original deed.
It would be fine if they took it all. But I don't think that's what we're talking about here today.
What would be fine? Well, it's exactly what we're talking about today.
But here's what I don't think
it would be fine if the state of Israel took over all.
They don't want to take it over. They're not asking to take it over.
But you're saying that the reason that Israel is legitimate, has this inherent right to exist, is in part because God gave it to his people. And I am going to the same Bible that you're referring to and noticing that that is a huge piece of land. So if God gave them that land, then they have a right to take it now by your definition, unless I'm missing something.
Well, I think you're missing something because they're not asking to go back to take all of that, but they are asking to at least take the land that they now occupy, they now live in, they now own legitimately, and it is a safe haven for them.
Well, may I ask though, because you're explaining what Christian Zionism is and your theological beliefs, and you think you just said it would be fine with you if the state of Israel took all of Jordan, all of Syria, all of Lebanon.
That's really not exactly what I'm trying to say.
I'm asking, is that what you said? I thought that's what you just said.
It was somewhat of a hyperbolic statement in that, if that's what you feel like that we're talking about, but it isn't. We're talking about this land that Israel, the state of Israel, now lives in and wants to have peace in. They're not trying to take over Jordan. They're not trying to take over.
That is such a lie. See, that he's okay. It's pretty clear what he's doing. He's running cover. I mean, the Greater Israel Project completely contradicts that. It is that. They want to expand into Jordan. They want to expand into Egypt, Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon. Like, that is so beyond the truth. And just to show you, I'm not making this up, go right now to Google and Google what the IDF's soldiers wear on their shoulder patch. It's literally the Greater Israel Project, highlighted in blue.
Syria, they're not trying to take over Iraq or anywhere else, but they do want to protect Lebanon? Their people. No, they're not trying to take over Lebanon.
But you're saying that as a religious man, as a Christian Zionist, you agree with a lot of religious communities here in Israel that the justification for this country is theological. It's a contract between God and his people. And I'm telling you that contract includes a tract of land that is much larger than the current nation state.
So you may be a bigger Zionist than even the Jews are that live in Israel.
I'm trying to understand the implications of your theology.
What? Yeah, so it's pretty crazy. I guess we have a buffer here, but yeah, I can't believe.
Whoa. What's that? I just built a budgeting app in Base 44.
Play is as dumb as you
Maybe just built an app.
Impossible.
Because at first I was like, you know what? Maybe he's a nice guy. Maybe he's just genuinely playing dumb. But yeah, he knows what he's doing. That's for sure. Oh, we lost it here.
moral right to take over what are now other people's countries.
No, I didn't say that.
Then what are you saying?
I'm simply saying that the people who live in Israel, I think, have a right to have security, have safety. They have a right to be able to live in this land that they have a connection to for 30.
I told myself when I said a prayer that I would not get annoyed, but as someone who is, the father of daughters, when I see child molesters hiding in Israel and escaping American justice, I think I have a right to safety in my country too. So you can understand that I think most people feel they have a right to safety. I do think Israel has a right to safety, and I hope that for them. And I'm sincere, but I'm an American, and I have a right to safety in my country too. Of course you do, agree? And I think, so, but I just want to get to this point. If Israel were to say, God gave us in Genesis 15, all of Lebanon, all of Syria, all the way up to Iraq, would that be legitimate in your view?
I don't think in this particular day and time they're asking for it.
Would it be legitimate?
I'm not sure that it would be.
Why? Because you just said that God gave it to them.
Because I think that there is an understanding that the people of Israel today, now, if they end up getting attacked by all these places and they win that war and they take that land, then okay, that's a whole nother discussion. But you and I started out.
We
started talking about some.
Yeah, that's what they want. They create these proxy wars. They elect Hamas, and then they use them to overthrow them as justification for more land grabs. It's what they do every time.
Things simple. Christian Zionism.
And it turns out it's not simple because the core of Christian Zionism, you said, and I'm quoting you, is the understanding, the belief, the theological understanding that Jews have a moral and legal, we went through the legal, biblical, moral deriving from the biblical, the promises in our Bible, which we share with the Jewish people, the first part of the Old Testament, that it derives from God's promise to the Jews. And so I have two questions. What are the borders of that? And who are those people in 2026? And you're not the first person I've asked, but you're the most reasonable, most gentle, most theologically informed person. So I'm really hoping for an answer. Yeah. The first question was the borders. I can't get an answer. Yeah. Those borders are. So I'm going to give up. But the second question is every bit as pressing, which is who are the people? Who are the modern? Yes. Who are the descendants? So we know, and I believe, and I agree with you as a Christian, that God promised this land from modern-day Iraq to modern-day Egypt to this people, the Jews, to Abram's, actually not to Abram's descendants, as it says in Genesis 15. Who are his descendants now, and how do we know who they are?
I think they're the Jews, and we know who they are because they've always been a Jewish people. There has been an unbroken line of Jewish people, and they've lived in this land for 3,800 years. Sometimes not very many of them, because they were chased out all over the world. They were hunted down. They were almost annihilated during the Holocaust. They came back. To this day, Tucker, they represent, you know how many Jews there are in the whole world?
Please, no, I understand. First of all, the greatest genocide of Jews no one ever mentions was by the Romans, where they were literally banned from Jerusalem for 500 years.
Yeah, of course.
And it's all awful. And I'm opposed to all of that. I'm opposed to mass killing of anybody, period. I'm opposed to
hear you say that.
I mean it.
Yeah,
and I hope
I believe that. I believe that.
My question is, and it's not a bumper sticker answer, it's a sincere answer, how do we know? Because what you're saying is that certain people have a title to a highly contested region. They own it in some deep sense. So I think it's fair to ask, who are they and how do we know? So the current prime minister's ancestors weren't from here within recorded history. He has no deed. Bibi Netanyahu, on one side, his family's from Poland. They're from Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
So how do we know that he has a connection to the people who God promised the land to, Abram's descendants? How do we know that?
Oh, this is going to trip him up big time. How is he going to answer this? Because then it's going to go into, DNA testing isn't allowed in Israel. Then they're going to talk about how the Eastern Ashkenazis were basically the real people who are there today, and it's not the Semitic people who are the Palestinians who... It really deflates what Huckabee is trying to say, that they, the present day people of Israel, have claim to the land. But when you say you talk about the DNA and people who also do and probably have more claim to it, that really shatters the argument that they deserve to have a country. They deserve to have, that piece of land that God gave them. So you can really see how this is a politically funded thing or politically operated movement that Huckabee is partaking in. But you could say that's borderline treason right there. That is, you are covering for a foreign country to not only manipulate Americans but Christians too. So I think that's a major disservice.
Well, if you take the genealogies that come not only from the Old but the New Testament, you see that there is a historical connection through the entirety of the Old and the New Testament that details the Jewish connection to this land.
Does that include Bibi's family? How do we know that if his family
they were
comes here,
scattered?
but how do we know it's the same people? No, why is that crazy? If you say to me,
if they speak the same language, if they worship the same God, if they follow the same Bible, if they follow the same cultures and traditions, and they always pray next year in Jerusalem, and they pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and they pray facing toward Jerusalem, does that not give you a little bit of a clue as to who they are?
Let's go through those things, because I would like to have a rational conversation. This is the conversation I've wanted. Bless you. Thank you for doing this. Let's just go through those things.
Okay.
So one of the things I admire most about Israel is they resurrected the dead language in 1948. Good for them.
Well, they really didn't resurrect it. It was existent.
Okay. That's a compliment. I'm not slighting.
No, but it is the first time in all of human history that a language has survived through this length of time. It's I would call it, you might not, but I would call it a miracle. One of many.
Okay.
That you can attribute to this
I
language.
think it's wonderful as someone who loves language. Netanyahu's parents did not speak Hebrew. Okay. They didn't live in this region. Netanyahu, the founders of this country, were mostly secular. Some of them were avowed atheists. They were not praying for the peace of Jerusalem. They weren't praying at all because they didn't believe in God.
Yeah, his name is not Benjamin Netanyahu. It's Benjamin Mirkowski. Let's fact check that one real quick, actually. What is, well, type quick enough here. Netanyahu's real name. And of course, Grok's not working. Okay, well, we're going to pull this up somewhere else then. Okay, you get the point. Yeah, of course, every time I try to make a good point, something goes wrong there. But yeah, I get the point. His name is Benjamin Mirkowski, Polish last name, Polish descent, no claims to the land that Huckabee claims is that validates their protection and their security and their existence.
There's no genealogy linking their families to the...
But yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like, I think it's good Tucker's doing this interview. He's definitely winning the conversation, but Tucker just doesn't know how to take a position and double down on it. Like, dude's never done that on anything. Like, works for every single mainstream media company that there is. And I really don't know what he identifies as or believes in today. It's really hard telling. Someone like Tucker, like I said, he's so tied into the White House. He's got all these connections. Really hard telling what this guy is, but this is an important interview. I think a lot of people that are confused and conflicted about Christian Zionism are going to see in full display that this is just nothing more than a politically funded movement. It's not biblical. It's not spiritual. There's nothing in the scripture that says Zionism at all. This is just literally for the people of Israel, the nation of Israel, which is secular, to have their own sovereignty, which is being conflated with our Christian Bible. Just like the Schofield Bible. It's like it is straight up infiltration and manipulation of the church, and you hate to see it.
They were still Jews. But they were still Jews.
Okay,
That's
so then
what
let
made
me
them
get to the
unique.
nub of the question, since again, a lot is at stake, a lot of money is at stake. Land is very valuable. Israel has a lot of resources. By the way, if you're accused of a crime, you can hide here. That's a pretty good passport to have. It's a good thing, right? So who's entitled to it? I don't understand, and you're very discouraged in the United States from asking this question for some reason. It's a totally rational
I'm not
question.
discouraged.
No, you're not discouraging me. Others do. You're like the only person I can have this conversation with. Everyone will be like, shut up, Nazi. It's a foundational question. Are you speaking of an ethnic group or a religious group?
Well, I think you're looking at, for many people, it is religious. There are people who may not have a deep religious connection to Judaism, but they're still Jews.
Okay, so it's an ethnic category.
It is ethnic, but it is also religious. It is rooted in religion. You can't take it out of it. Now, that means
then how can an atheist...
Well, I will tell you this. There are some people who say, I'm Christian. They never go to church. They never pray. They never read their Bible. They don't tithe.
But they're not entitled to citizenship on the basis of that.
Well,
they're
but
not entitled to...
They still call themselves Christian, even though they identify in that way.
Here's the difference. You're saying that people who have this identification have a deed to a huge chunk of land on the Mediterranean, okay? So there's...
You aren't born Christian, you become Christian. And yes, you can say that, oh yeah, you can still identify as a Christian without praying and without reading your Bible and participating in any of the, anything at all. The reality is you can be born Jewish and you're Jewish and not partake in the religion. That's the difference here. It's an ethnicity versus a religion. As a white person, there is no religion that's the same as the race. And that's where it's very different and convoluted with Israel and the people we're talking about here.
It's a right. You keep telling me it's a right. And so it's totally fair to say, if you come to my house and say, I've got the title to your house, I get to ask, may I see it? Where'd you get it? And that's exactly what happened here. People from Europe, Eastern Europe, came here, in a lot of cases atheists, and kicked out a lot of people who lived here.
Land.
Well, but
they did not just throw people out.
They bought a lot of land. There's no question about that.
They did buy a lot of land.
But they also, in 1948, kicked out a lot of people.
In the war.
It was a war. I agree.
Yeah.
I don't want to relitigate the history. I'm just saying it's a fact.
Okay.
Including a lot of Christians wound up fleeing, and they lost their homes, and they've never been allowed back. And all of this was justified on the basis of this identity that is the ticket to the right that you keep referring to. So my question is very simple. I'm going to wait patiently for an answer. Does this right derive from religious affiliation or from genetics?
And I would say it's both. But I would also say that when you said the Christians were kicked out, Tucker, Christianity is growing in Israel.
Okay.
And there is a big lie that goes out there. But no, let me finish this, because I keep hearing that Christians are really not treated well in Israel. That's a lie.
Well, there are lots
it is a lie.
There are lots of different.
There were 34,000 Christians in Israel in 1948. There are 180.
Even Talmud Tatum said he got spit on when he went to Israel. Come on.
4,000 Christians here today.
And by Israel, what are you counting?
You talking about the land?
What territory are you counting? I'm counting about Israel proper? Or are you counting
about Israel
the West Bank as well and Gaza? I mean, what do you, when you say Israel, those numbers apply to what landmass?
It would be in Israel proper.
Okay.
There are 184,000. Now, I'll tell you where Christians are not doing very well. They're not doing very well in the Muslim-controlled countries. There's almost no Christians in Qatar, for example, except those who live in the Christian ghetto, who are the service workers.
I'm sorry. Look, I don't want to argue with you. There are many more Christians in Qatar than there are in Israel.
That's not true.
It actually is true. And I refer you to Wikipedia, Mr. Ambassador.
Wikipedia.
I refer you to the government of Qatar, the government of Israel. These are knowable facts. I'm in Jordan, by the way,
numbers are down. In Syria, the numbers are down. In Lebanon, the numbers are down. I'm just telling you that
about twice as many Christians.
But they live.
I actually don't know the answer to that one. Let's check that out real quick. Are there more Christians in Israel or Qatar? See if Grok finally works here. Restart X. Elon Musk. Horrible app. This app is terrible. It's like the one app that like never loads. Everything else works immediately. TikTok, Threads, Facebook, YouTube. But every time you cannot get this freaking app to work. Elon just destroyed this thing. Okay, again. I guess we gotta just go to freaking Google here. That actually pisses me off. It's like, come on, that's the whole convenience of having Grok, and of course it doesn't work. Are there more Christians in Israel or Qatar? There are more Christians in Israel than in Qatar. As of recent reports, Israel has a growing Christian population, approximately 188,000 to over 182,000, while Qatar has a high percentage of Christians, roughly 13 to 15%, due to its large expatriate workforce. The absolute number is generally lower than the... Okay, so I guess Huckabee was right there, but he should probably know that, being the ambassador to that country.
In Qatar than there are in Israel. Fact.
How many?
Now you caught me. I don't know. I can look at my phone, but I was just there, and there are many more. Like, whatever. But I just want to get to the point.
Yeah. Tucker.
But could we get someone from the embassy to ride in?
Right. Yeah. Tucker is just not the guy to be debating here. It's like, good he's doing the interview, because not many people would probably get Huckabee to do this. But it's like, how are you going to say that that's a fact? And then we just showed you guys that he was wrong there. And then Huckabee says, what's the number? Oh, I don't know. I saw them there. And then, okay. It's like, bro, come on.
Eve to me is basically freedom. It's a giant open universe where you can.
Let me just say, I think, and I know a bunch of people serve in the IDF, and I don't believe your average IDF soldier wants to kill innocents. I just want to be really clear about that.
Okay, guys, this is a really long interview. Let's just see the topics here. So Netanyahu, Huckabee accuses Tony Blinken, 9/11 files. What do you got to say about this?
Why are 9/11 documents still classified?
I have no idea.
Should they be unclassified?
I think so.
All of them, right?
I have no problem with that.
Me too.
I like transparency. I like sunlight.
I do. I hope you'll call for that.
I like free press. I like free speech.
I totally agree.
I like all of that.
But if there was no connect, I'm open to anything, but I've never seen any connection between the government of Saddam Hussein, the secular Ba'athist government of Saddam Hussein, and the terror attacks of 9/11.
I don't know that there were. I don't know.
Right. So
I'm not sure, but I don't know how.
So why
was that Israel's fault?
Well, Benjamin Netanyahu, now prime minister, of course, exerted lots of pressure. Why are we sending all this money to a country that has a higher standard of living than ours?
I don't know that they have a higher standard of living.
They do, actually. They have free health care. They also have free abortion. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, they do.
I personally don't like that.
Why would we be subsidizing? Why would we send any money?
Not.
Why would we send any money to a country that provides free abortion?
Because the money that we send does not pay for health care. It does not pay for abortion. It pays for military things.
It's like, if they don't spend it on this, they'll spend it on that.
But they do spend it on that, and then we get many more times back in the return on the investment.
Why don't we say we're not sending you any more money as long as you have free abortion?
Well, that would be a policy decision.
I would be for that.
I would be okay.
That's why James Fishback needs to become governor of Florida. He's going to take that $360 million they take annually, invest in Israel bonds, and they're going to take that back and give it right to Floridians. Yeah, that is total nonsense to say that we get a return on that. Come on, that needs to stay in the state of Florida.
With it, because I hate abortion. I think it's horrible.
How much do you hate it?
I hate it a lot.
Why are we sending the money if they're paying for free abortion?
Because they're not paying for abortions with the money. And because we, in turn, get billions of dollars. The return on investment is estimated somewhere between 400 and 1,200%.
I've heard these numbers. I just live there, and I know, and I'm, by the way, I'm for American manufacturing. The defense industry is totally corrupt and seedy, as you know. However, I like to see American companies thrive. Like, it's complicated. I'm not an extremist or an absolutist on really anything. other than abortion. However, net, as we say, our country's not really thriving. And we're also totally broke.
Why is that the case? Is it because we've done a lousy job controlling our borders, a lousy job of controlling our economy? It's a lot of things.
Yeah.
But we own that. I think President Trump is doing remarkable things to turn it around. I cannot imagine any president.
Trump.
I know, but if you're saying the country is in trouble, let's
saying we're out of money. Actually,
let's give credit to what the president is doing to get us out of debt, because I think that what he's doing economically.
I'm not supporting Hamas, and I'm not attacking Trump.
Okay,
just with those baseline agreements. It's also true that like our debt is not sustainable, and so given that, like, what do you think it will cost? What did it cost to move the fleet off Iran into the Persian Gulf?
A lot less than it would to bury a lot of Americans if they ever got a long-range ballistic missile. A lot less.
Yeah,
Tucker, I want you to understand that when Iran has told us for 47 years they're going to kill us, do you think they would do it if they had the capacity militarily?
What would happen if...
There we go again. It's the same Hezbollah argument. If Iran had the military capability to take out the United States, you think they would? They probably wouldn't. They would, again, Israel maybe. There's probably a good argument there. I would predict that they would go after Israel. But that's their problem. That's not the United States problem. And that's what they always try to conflate to make it our problem. And just like Iraq, just like all the other Middle Eastern wars we fought on behalf of Israel, and we've got nothing in return for. We've just lost soldiers. I mean, 4,000 in Iraq. I don't know what the exact total is in the Middle East, but it's absolutely detrimental what we've seen happen to our American servicemen. And it's the same propaganda, same playbook that Netanyahu had, and the former Israeli prime minister has got Americans to fall for again. And the Trump administration seems very aligned. I mean, you got Marco Rubio that's meeting with Netanyahu this week, or just met with him, and they're on the same page about fighting Iran. They think it's fulfilling the new American century. It's the whole greater Israel. They're not going to straight say that, but yeah, that's what they're planning to do. And they'll try to deny this. They'll try to say that the United States will be in serious trouble if we don't take action now. But this is clearly Israel's problems, and yet again, they're making it ours.
Iran took out any of the energy facilities in the Gulf, took out a bunch of them. What would happen to the United States economy, do you think?
Well, our economy probably would survive because we have energy independence thanks to President Trump.
Would survive.
Our economy is based on our own markets.
What do you think?
It would be a terrible thing to happen globally. It's why Iran is a global threat. It's why Iran, through its proxies, Tucker, this is another thing.
They're not blowing up energy infrastructure right now, but if we try to regime change them, they have said that they will. I don't know if they will or not.
I don't either.
Is that a risk that...
But they have their own problems to defend if they try to do that, and they lose their own energy capacity.
Worried about... So if they took out... And I don't know what's going to happen, and I guess we're not supposed to think about worst case because that makes us pro-Islamic or something. But I'm an American, and I don't want a depression in our country. It's too fractured and unstable right now. I don't think we want that at all. Okay,
none of us want that. None of us want that.
Not right now. We don't. Not at all.
No, I don't want it next year, next week, 10 years from now.
All these states are basically in a state of insurrection against the federal government. They're not enforcing the most basic law of the land, which is immigration.
And thank goodness President Trump is pushing back, and he's...
I agree. I'm just saying,
seeking to force...
If all of a sudden
compliance,
markets just tanked and gas tripled or whatever, and you had... like a severe recession or something worse, that's a massive cost. And I don't see anybody factoring in that possibility. Iran has said it will do it. You've said 10 times they're evil. Okay, I believe you. Then why wouldn't they take out the Qatari gas fields they share with Qatar, or refining, petrochemicals, extraction in any of the Gulf countries? That would cripple us.
Are you worried energy-wise, again, we have independence because President Trump put measures in place that gave us the capacity.
Do we set international energy prices in the United States?
In some ways we do, because our own market and our own production has a whole lot to do with what those world costs are going to be.
If you took Saudi energy production or Qatari energy production or Emirati energy production offline.
That is making an assumption that if there were regime change, that they would be more effective at attacking than we would be defending. And that's a pretty...
Can we defend the Straits of Hormuz? Can we defend all of that energy infrastructure? Is anyone even asking these questions? Or it's all like a Mark Levin episode where like, they're bad.
They are certainly...
Yeah, it's like, they're bad. Okay, well, what are we...
And it's like, shut up, Carlson. You're taking money from the jihadis. I'm never taking a dime from anybody, obviously. I just care about the United States, and it freaks me out, and no one else seems worried about this.
In caring about the U.S., you should care about the fact that the proxies of Iran have moved globally. 12 Central and South American countries have Hezbollah deeply embedded. Venezuela, one of the worst. They're in the Western Hemisphere already. Do we know how many...
Where would you rank that on the like list of concerns for the average American, Hezbollah? And
I doubt most Americans think about it. I think about it because I know what they do. I know that if it weren't for Iran, there wouldn't be Hamas, there wouldn't be the Houthis, there wouldn't be Hezbollah. We wouldn't have the problem on the border with Lebanon. We wouldn't have the problem with Yemen. We wouldn't have the
problem on the border with Lebanon. I'm an American. I'm not having any problems on the border with Lebanon right now. I live in Maine. We don't have problems on the border of Lebanon. Like, what are you even talking about? No offense.
There's 700,000 Americans who live in Israel, for one thing. Does that matter to you?
Well, of course, every American life matters to me.
Every life, you say, matters the same, so that should...
Okay, what? So now we have to defend every single country? Because I'm pretty sure there's an American somewhere in all 200 plus nations and islands and everywhere else. So what? Because Edward Snowden's in Russia, are we called to defend them? Because I'm sure our U.S. government won't do that. Yeah, that's just terrible logic right there. That can get dismantled really easily.
Matter. When they start,
my country, like
when they start shelling civilians and civilians get killed and displaced, that should matter to all of us.
But I mean, there's a genocide going on, like in all kinds of different countries. There's a lot that's sad and broken about the world. We know that as Christians, Satan rules the world. Mm-hmm. But our job as like members of a nation state is to look after our community, our families, right? So I don't think any of the concerns that you've just raised, which I think are all real, I'm not disputing them at all, are even in like the top 100 for Americans. So how can the U.S. government be spending this much time and money worrying about things that are not on the list of Americans' concerns? Do we have self-government? Does it matter what Americans actually think, or doesn't it?
Of course it does, but it also matters
how much does it
what
matter?
The threat is to Americans. Do you think there's a threat to Americans because of the proliferation of the proxies in Iran?
Conceivably there is. I'm not pro-Iran.
But beyond conceivably. Do you think that they mean it when they said for 47 years?
Cartels like in my town, and no one's doing anything about it at all. You know,
do you support Israel and the Jewish people? Now, more than ever, Israel needs committed friends around the world to voice their support in her struggle for peace and security, especially as terrorists seek to wipe the Jewish state and the Jewish people from the map. You can show your solidarity.
You can please go somewhere else.
All. Okay? That's a fact. We have a huge country. This is a country the size of New Jersey with no resources. It's just a tiny little country.
Mm-hmm.
We're from a huge continental-sized country that's totally diverse, very, very hard to manage and police, and we have a lot of problems. And I just think if you ask Americans, what do they want to spend their time and money worrying about, fixing, improving? No one's going to mention the border with Lebanon that I know. Do you think?
I doubt they will. But
then why are we doing this? Don't their opinions matter? I would like to think that there are
people that the U.S. government has monitoring what the threats are to Americans long term.
Sure, yeah,
Do you think there's a threat? The question is, when people thought for 37 years, well, but I don't know that Saddam ever said he was going to take down America. But the Iranian regime has said for 47 years they are. If they had the capacity of a long-range ballistic missile and nuclear capability, do you think they'd light that puppy up and send it to us?
I don't know. But I know
I know this from sitting here last year, 4 wars that I went through in less than a year. The Iranians rained down ballistic missiles.
Can I ask you a question? Like, how much does it matter what Americans think?
Well, it matters every bit what Americans think. That's why Americans vote. It's why Americans have the opportunity to have free speech. We want them to have that.
Okay, so what percentage of Americans support a war with Iran?
I don't know. Do you know?
I do. I think it's around, I saw the numbers yesterday. I think it was like 21%.
Okay.
It's pretty low, but what really speaks volumes is what Charlie Kirk said in a poll like 3 months before he died last June. He said, like literally, I mean, a majority of them were probably young people and people that were under 40, maybe some were older, because TPUSA was like kind of the heart of the conservative movement, it still is, especially when Charlie was around. But yeah, when he said, do you guys support a war with Iran? Should we get involved with that? This was like, I think this is after we did get involved. This is after, either the start of the 6-day or the 12-day war, or maybe during. But yeah, no, he said that, and 90% of the people said no, 10% said yes. So the American people do not want this war. And the ones that do are just brainwashed by Trump and are just falling for the same thing that, it's the same George Bush playbook with Iraq and every other place that we overthrow.
Is that enough to have a war with Iran?
We don't live in a world where you have a poll taken to find out whether our policy should be a particular direction. Because
I thought you just said that
that's
we
direct
vote.
democracy. No, we care deeply about it. But on the other hand, do we make the decisions of foreign policy and even domestic policy based on
we
what
care
the
deeply about it?
poll
In
number
what
is?
sense? If we're ignoring it, then in what sense do we quote care deeply about it?
Well, I think we care deeply when we see there's a threat.
No, but about Americans' opinions. So you've got 350 million Americans. They voted in this last election on the basis, in part, of the promise no more wars. Okay, so now we're about to have a war. Looks like 80% of people are against it. In that range, let's say 70%, but nowhere near majority support for this war. And it's not direct democracy, but it is a form of democracy. It's representative democracy.
The ultimate form of democracy in our system, in a republic, because we're not a true democracy, we're a republic.
Exactly, right? It's a mediated democracy.
It'll be an opportunity for Americans to vote if they think that we've made the wrong policy decisions. I personally think the president is making the right policy decisions.
But I guess, but you just said it matters deeply what Americans think, and if the overwhelming majority are against it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I guess Trump did pick him because, he's probably one of the most staunch supporters for Israel in the U.S. government. But it's just pretty crazy. He would not disagree with Trump on anything, especially relating to Israel. It just proved that he's defending and representing Israel, not the United States. It's hard to find any correlation between this guy, Huckabee, and like, what is his agency? He's not representing Americans and Christians at all, especially when he's using this Zionism political ideology and just these things that are just totally out of proportion and not what Christians believe. So, yeah, it's interesting. I would love to know what pastors and the whole online community of what they think. I mean, Catholics. I would imagine that even the Ortho Bros and the Protestants, they wouldn't be too fond of this. I can't imagine that they would be too agreeing with the sentiment of Huckabee here. It would just be the people that are behind this financial movement and the people that are benefiting off it. And it's clearly Israel. It is people that seek to divide Christians from Jesus Christ and the things that are the truth. And that is inherently a problem. And I hope this interview highlights that. I hope people actually see through what Huckabee's doing here, and that this is not what it should look like at all for the U.S. ambassador of the United States to be in a foreign country in a position of power. He should not be representing them. He should be representing us. And he's doing it in a way that is so contradictory to our way of life and our values in our country that it seems that he could be a national security threat, especially meeting with Jonathan Pollard, clearly conflating his personal political ideology with the support of a foreign nation and its people that directly are, it's condescending, it's hurting the people of America that, I know they say we aren't a Christian nation, but for the most part was founded on Christianity, and to this day is Christian, is a nation that still wants to be majority Christian, I believe, even though, ethnicity-wise, it's going a different direction. But this is something that I know is being preserved, is trying to be preserved. But people like Huckabee are just the people that are just really behind the corruption here. They really are selling out our country because that's honestly worse than your opposition, because your own side is betraying you, and that is the ultimate betrayal in my eyes. That's why I've been so critical of Trump. That's why I've literally been saying, people will say, you're a TDS or you're a liberal. It's like, no, I'm not a liberal. I'm pretty far right. And I think a lot of people attest to that. But the problem I have is, again, I've got problems with the opposition, the left. Like they've got their own issues and my own issues with them as well. But the problem is with something like with Trump and, people that aren't actually following through with the things they promised. I mean, that is inherently so much worse than what your enemy could do to you. It's just betrayal. And that's something I can't personally stand for. But yeah, I mean, it's just wild. I think this did reveal a lot, and we're not even, this is a long interview. Yeah, about 30 minutes left, so finish it out.
In what sense does it matter? Because what I hear is it matters what they think, but it really doesn't matter what they think because...
No, you take it in, you certainly ingest that.
And then what do you do with it once you ingest it?
Then you make sure that you have...
You just gotta... It goes out the other end, obviously.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't, Tucker. But you also have information that the average American may not have. They may not know what the threat is. How many Americans know that Hezbollah is in 12 Western Hemisphere countries?
How many Americans care?
Well, I would hope they would all care. How many Americans know how many people from Iran, from terrorist cells, have come across Joe Biden's open border? How many Americans care about that?
I definitely care about that.
Okay,
why haven't they been rounded up?
But they're trying. But you got all these blue state mayors and governors making it very difficult.
I get it.
But thank God President Trump is trying to get it done.
Look, I'm totally all for that completely.
Okay.
I guess what I'm saying is that most Americans, I've never met an American who thinks, other than like the people who have ideological reasons to pretend they think it, that the imminent threat to America is anything having to do with Iran. The imminent threats to America include like bankruptcy from too much debt, your son ODing on fentanyl, your neighborhood completely changing because unlike Israel, Americans don't have a right to their country. They can just be completely changed by the legislature. New people can show up from foreign countries and not speak your language. There's nothing you can do about it because you don't have a right because you're not Bibi. Can you feel the resentment because it's real? I'm not against Israel. I'm against the total destruction.
You hide that very well.
I'm mad at my lawmakers for not protecting my country with the care they've protected Israel.
I don't think that your country, my country, our country, has spent that much time protecting Israel. I asked you a little bit ago.
They spent no time protecting my country.
No, I asked you. Well, actually, they do.
How?
They are the tip of the spear. Every enemy they have is our enemy.
Our country?
Things that are targeted toward us often go through them.
How do we have 60 million illegal aliens if they protected my country?
Well, we didn't protect our country because we had a president that opened up the borders and didn't give a rip.
This has been going on since Reagan.
Coming in.
Since Reagan, 1986.
Yeah, but
so he just said America has not done that much to help Israel. Are you kidding me? Like, that is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. Is he just discounting all the troops we sent out there to fight the 7 wars for Israel over the past 2 to 3 decades plus? I think the 10 to 15 over the past 100 years. And does he forget how much money we give them? And he tries to say, oh, it's an investment thing. We give them 20 billion plus, if not 50 billion, 100 billion actually last year, just in foreign aid, military equipment. So that's just so absurd, flat on its face, to say that the United States really hasn't done that much for Israel. It's not like we lost 4,000 U.S. troops in Iraq and not a single IDF soldier. Not like that has any importance at all. It's absolutely insane.
That's 40 years this
President
year.
Trump the credit for having closed the border.
I love the fact. I campaigned for Trump because he said he'd close the border. He did. Amen. Thank you, Trump. But we had Reagan. Then we had Bush. Then we had Clinton. Then we had Bush again. Ugh. Then we had that guy, Obama. And then the presidents.
Yeah.
And they all presided over my country's total transformation from a nice, clean, affluent, orderly society into a pretty common third world, actually. That's not protecting us. That's behaving with total contempt for my country.
You said a moment ago that we do more, or you inferred, that we do more for Israel than we do for ourselves. Do you believe that?
No, I don't. I didn't say we do more for Israel. It's like, but where's the care? Where's the concern? Where's the, holy smokes, there are drug cartels in your neighborhood? You're telling me about the border with Lebanon and like Hezbollah, or Hezbollah, whatever you call it, in some Latin American country? I don't care. There are drug cartels in my neighborhood. I know people who died of fentanyl ODs.
Where did the fentanyl come from? Probably from China.
From Mexico.
From China through
the precursor chemicals, they say, come from China. I get it.
And who's in that axis with China? Iran.
Larry Fink is in that axis with, no, actually, the heads of our biggest corporations are in that axis with China. I don't care about Iran at all. I care about America. And if blowing...
Yeah, I like that take. I like this take right here. This is a good Tucker gaining some aura again.
Blowing up Iran makes my country richer and safer. I'm for it. And if it doesn't, I'm totally opposed. It's that simple. I think most Americans feel that way, no?
I asked you a question a little bit ago you never got back to, because I think it's an important one. Because one of the things that I sense a tension with you, you feel like that we do too much for Israel, we're getting nothing from it. And I ask you how many...
No, I don't think we're getting nothing.
How many boots on the ground has the U.S. placed on behalf of Israel?
However many went to Iraq. We did that for Israel.
No, I don't think we did.
But you said...
What?
We did it because of 9/11?
That was the U.S. justification for it.
But it wasn't 9/11. So what was the actual reason?
Well, that's the U.S. government told us it was for 9/11. They told us that they were part of it, that they had weapons of mass destruction.
But they knew they had nothing to do with 9/11, obviously. There's no evidence.
But I'm
so what was the actual
Israel
reason?
Was not in that component.
But Israel had no influence on our decision to invade Iraq. That's not what the people who made the decision say. They say Israel...
Well, let me get back to the point.
...gave us that information about the fake weapons of mass destruction. What do you think?
Yep. And of course he said, let me get back to the point. Yeah, no, that is totally wrong again, because the clean break memo that was put out by the Bush administration, it was literally designed. It was a doctrine that outlined a plan for 7 Middle Eastern countries to be overthrown in 5 years. And Iran is the last of those countries. All 6 of the countries in that list have been overthrown, and regime change have been implemented. And it seems to be that Iran is the last one that, it's the last straw here. And it's just totally funny how Huckabee, because there's no way he doesn't. He obviously knows the dynamics of the situation. That's why he's, again, trying to divert from the conversation.
Question came from Bibi. How many Americans put their boots on the ground for Israel? The answer is 0.
Everybody who served in Iraq put their boots on the ground for Israel.
Did not.
Where did we get the information about the weapons of mass destruction that wasn't real?
We didn't get that from... You're saying we got that from Israel? That Israel was one pushed us into that?
Well, absolutely.
You really believe that?
I know that for a fact. And so does Yes, this has been widely written about and discussed. And I'm not attacking Israel. Like, they thought it was in their interest to take out a government that was paying the families of suicide bombers. I get it. I'm not mad at Israel about that. I never have been. I'm mad at the Bush administration and all the people who went along with this to the detriment of my country. That's who I'm mad at, not Israel. Bibi's doing what he can for his country, whether you agree with him or not. I want my leaders to do the same for my country. That's it.
I think the present leadership is doing just that. I truly do. And I don't think that it's at all accurate to even intimate that tiny little Israel is pushing the U.S. into something it does not want to do.
Our leaders appear to want to do it. Our public does not want to do it at all. The public does not want.
That's another false dichotomy there. He says, how can this small little country push the giant United States into this massive war? It's much bigger than that. It's a convoluted conversation. They try to make it to be that, but it's really bigger than that. I mean, it's literally the fact that we have these billionaires in the United States, in Europe, of these certain people, them boys, we'll call them, in these countries, and they can just basically just hand money off. So they're already in these positions of power. They're already occupied. It's not that this country is manipulating everything. It's just like saying if the country of Pakistan had people with loyalty to Pakistan that were in our U.S. government, and it was a majority, it was like 80% of them. But take that Pakistan and replace it with Israel. So that's kind of the concept of what I'm saying here.
War with Iran. Bibi does. He's gotten seven trips to the White House. The average American American doesn't have that level of access, and a foreign leader does. 7 in 1 year, and now we're moving toward war with Iran. The average American doesn't want that war. The average American is outraged. Don't you understand?
I'm not attacking
Bibi
at all. The
I'm
strongest president I've ever seen in my lifetime, going back to Eisenhower, for God's sake.
If you're an American,
no, listen to me, Tucker, for God's sake.
I'm not attacking Trump. I like Trump.
I know, but you're making it sound like that he is being pulled into something that he really doesn't want to do, or pulled into something because he's persuaded.
I'm neither saying that nor implying.
I was in the meeting.
Yeah. And maybe that's why he needs to read the Epstein files.
Last week, I was in the meetings last summer. I can assure you, President Trump is not being led into something at all by Prime Minister Netanyahu.
To be clear, I'm neither saying that nor implying it.
Good.
What I am stating out loud is true, and that's that Prime Minister Netanyahu, Bibi Netanyahu, has way more influence over Americans' foreign policy than Americans do. And we know this because he wants a war with Iran. The overwhelming majority of Americans don't want a war with Iran, and we're very likely to get a war with Iran. So who has more influence, Benjamin Netanyahu or 80% of Americans? And I'm saying that's outrageous. That's all I'm saying.
I would counter that. Bibi Netanyahu does not want a war with Iran. To say that he wants a war, you know who's going to be at the very front of that? His people.
He at the least wants regime change. He's made it very clear he does not want comedian power. They totally, at the least, want regime change, which, if you look at the track record with Iraq, with the forever wars and U.S. intervention, the chances are it's going to be more than just a one-time thing and just a, regime change. For instance, the 12-day war in the summer, when everyone was, giving Trump the pat on the back and saying peace through strength, that was such a great job. The Operation Midnight Hammer, where the U.S., after Israel bombed Iran, where they said they also took out Iran's centrifuges, and they dismantled their nuclear program in Isfahan and Fordo and the other place. They claim they did. They definitely did not do that. But what happened is they basically try to make it sound as if if Iran would be able to. I think where I was going there. But yeah, crap. So the centrifuges were destroyed. And yeah, so it basically goes back to, sorry guys, totally lost my train of thought. It's been a long stream here. But yeah, this basically goes back to Iran, how we're only doing this for Israel. The centrifuges and their nuclear weapons are as a deterrent to Israel. And again, this goes back to this war that's been fought for a long time. It hasn't been overnight. It's repetitive. It's never ending. So it's not going to be a one and done if we actually go to Iran and do this 12-day war, plus the Trump's plans in the near future to bomb Iran very shortly. So we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, it's been pretty wild. Almost reacted the entire stream. I would say at this point, probably going to wrap it up. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. This is pretty wild because
what if you can create your own website by saying, this is what I want? With Wix, you can.
But anyway, sorry for the interruption there. But yeah, this is very important because I think people that are still trying to understand Zionism and Christianity and Judaism and because it's very very perplexing, and a lot of these things are being conjoined together when they're contradictions of each other, especially Christianity and Judaism. And the Zionism thing, again, is a politically funded movement. Do the history on it, look it up. You're either a Christian or, you're Jewish, you're Muslim. These things shouldn't be too complicated, but it's designed that way. It's supposed to be convoluted. I think Tucker, in general, won this debate. I think it was good that he did this. Like I said, good conversation, very important for the masses. It's good for the Overton window, even though Tucker, I'm very suspicious of his loyalty and his ties and everything he's really doing and who he says he is. But there is, I'll give credit where credit's due. But yeah, that'll about wrap it up here. Still have to do this Epstein files stream. We have not covered the entire 3 million plus documents they're releasing, or they've already released, but We're still going through them as we speak. Go to my X profile. I'm covering on X at Kacee Allen. We'll be doing a full coverage breakdown on this like we're doing here. But with my X feed and all the documents we have so far, we're talking probably thousands. So this will be like a 5 to 6 hour stream. We'll have it up on YouTube, Rumble, X, and maybe we even go live on Kick. But yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully we actually don't go to war with Iran and things are relatively peaceful in the future, but I don't see that happening. I'm just trying to be, white-pilled in a sense, but it definitely looks like things are going to go south. And hopefully the more people that wake up and the masses understand that Christ is king, and that we have to realize that we can't let these things blind us and delude us from reality and the things that are important. And that's Christ, and that's, making sure that you yourself are following God's laws and God's rules, and you're being the best of yourself you can be without being propagated and controlled by this this Israel first propaganda, this clear agenda that's being used to help this foreign country and hurt Americans that are just trying to live their own life, and they shouldn't be concerned with all these foreign things. This country, a lot of people can't even pinpoint on a map. But unfortunately, that's where it's come to. And a lot of people do realize this. Gen Z, my generation, knows this to be true. So that'll about do it. Make sure to follow us on YouTube, X, and Rumble. But our show is primarily on YouTube. That's at Kacee Allen Show. And if you guys want to support us, go to Locals, the Kacee Allen Show, .locals.com. You can send us any amount you want and subscribe on our other channels. We'll see you next time.